conversation. That's what's cool about it.
Yeah.
If there's anybody to be chilled with it, it's me.
Yes. All right, are you ready?
I am.
Okay, should I hold this? Maybe I should hold this.
Woohoo! Are you fucking kidding me?
Are you fucking kidding me?
It's the Glen and Trez show.
Hi, I am here with Glen Depke. Hi, Glen. How are
Hi,
you?
a pleasure.
From Depke Wellness Center, and I'm super excited to be talking with you today. And Depke, Depke, oh shit.
All right. You
Just
cut it
roll
out.
over.
No, you cut it out.
Or cut it out, okay. Glen is the founder of the Depke Wellness Center here in Newport Beach, California, and is an expert in the area of health and wellness. So thank you for coming.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Awesome.
Great to be here.
So you have kind of an interesting journey, and I love that you used to own a pizza place.
Yes,
Especially because you tested me and I'm supposed to be gluten-free. I'm not very good at that. I'll make a little confession. But how did you get here?
Well, it's simple and deep at the same time. When I was 17, I had my first grand mal seizure. So if you've never had a seizure, you pass out, you fall to the ground, or you hit whatever's in the area, and you grand mal seizure, you kind of flip around like a fish out of water. And when you wake up from that, because of how it interacts with your soft tissue in your body, you almost feel like you got run over by a truck. I've never really been run over by a truck, but I can imagine that's how you would feel. And I had all the tests known to conventional medicine, and nothing was wrong. Right? So they looked at everything. They said, well, there's no reason for it. So their first response was
They had brain scans. There was
everything.
no evidence of
CAT scans,
what was causing this. Wow.
MRIs, EKGs, different stimulating effects, all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just kind of said, hey, it's just probably a once in a lifetime, issue. It'll probably never happen again, until 6 months later, and I had another. Mm-hmm. Now I went into the hospital. They did 2 days worth of testing, which ironically were the exact same tests I did last time, and they came to the same conclusion: nothing is wrong. But now that I had two, now I had a diagnosis of an epileptic, and that meant that they had to give me what they give me. So they put me on anticonvulsants. But unfortunately, even on the anticonvulsants, I continued to have seizures. Mm-hmm. And really, there was just one day I just happened to be reading information on the medication that I was on, and found that the medication that I was on long term can cause neurodegeneration. And I was like, wait a minute, don't I already have a neurological issue? Why would I take something that's going to further my neurodegeneration? Mm-hmm. So to make that long story short, that led me down the path of discovery of what caused the seizure disorder. And eventually, I'm not only seizure free, I don't take medications for seizures, and I'm literally never worried about having another seizure the rest of my life, because I got to the bottom of what caused it rather than saying, here, take this pill. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of drives my passion to help people achieve the same thing.
And so with your work, is that what you're looking to do then? Get to the bottom of what's causing different illnesses and diseases? And you're a naturopath.
Right.
So that's the road that took you towards naturopathy?
Yes, very good.
Naturopathy.
And yes.
So what is that? What?
Well, the easy way I explain it is, and there's a difference between also, I'm a traditional naturopath rather than a naturopathic medical doctor. Okay. So a naturopathic medical doctor still has medical training. They can write prescriptions. They could do minor surgery. It's more extensive toward the conventional realm that they're taught. Mm-hmm. And I am not that, because that's just not, I don't bash the conventional medical system, because there's a time and a place, and there's times where we need it, right? Mm-hmm. But that's not what I would ever want to do. So I chose traditional naturopathy, which basically means that I will work with people in completely non-invasive ways to just basically help them find balance.
Non-invasive meaning looking at diet?
Yeah, lifestyle changes, diet, maybe some herbal supplements or nutritional supplements or homeopathy. Just something that is just going to help their body find its balance in a really healthy way.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, I love that you wrote this book, Fat, Fatigued, and Frustrated: How to Reverse the Clock and Feel Young Again. And I wanted to explore this, and actually I have a funny story to share with you. I just went to the optometrist recently, probably about a month ago, and I walk in, the doctor says, what seems to be the problem? And I said, I just want to get my eyes checked. I've always had perfect vision my entire life. Just want to get my eyes checked because I'm having a hard time reading small print, especially if there's not a lot of light. And I told him I blame it on the computer screens, my cell phone. I think I'm working on the computer and my phone a little bit too much. And he comes back and he says, oh, so it has nothing to do with birthdays that you've had. And I say, excuse me, doctor, just like fine wine, I get better with age. And then we just proceeded to banter the whole time. But it was just interesting how there's just an automatic, well, this is what you expect. And the whole rest of the appointment, I'm getting close to 50. And he said, well, at 50 you should expect this, and at 60 you should expect this, and at 70 you should expect this. And of course I was, I wasn't buying into all of that. But what is your take on aging?
Yeah, it's so interesting what you bring up, because think about what we, as a culture, what we perceive as a natural aging process, right? Mm-hmm. In our 20s, we're healthy and vibrant. Mm-hmm. In our 30s, we start to gain a little bit of weight and start to get a little fatigued, right?
That doesn't happen.
Yeah. In our 40s, we start to have some medical conditions. We usually start down a path of some pharmaceuticals at that point. In our 50s, usually it's deeper chronic health issues, right? By the time we're in our 60s, usually there's significant prescription intervention and sometimes surgeries and deeper diagnosis of disease states. And then we kind of stumble along in a level of disrepair and imbalance for the last decade or so, and then we die. That's what we perceive as a natural aging process. Perceive.
Okay.
And
most people go through that.
Most people go through that. Okay. So that's why we perceive it that way, because everybody witnesses it. Mm-hmm. But to me, if that's natural aging process, count me out. I want nothing to do with it, right?
I'm I want my eyes to work. I want my body to be better as I age.
Right. Yeah. And the whole thing, though, is what we perceive as a natural aging process is very simply watching sick people get old. Mm. That's what's going on, because the reality of aging...
Hold on. You said watching sick people get old.
Right. Yeah.
Not old people get sick, because that's what we normally think, is the older you get, the sicker you get.
Yeah, no, that's not the case.
You're saying watching. Interesting.
So if you're sick and you're aging, you're going to see this representation of what we perceive as aging process. Mm-hmm. But when you're healthy... Yeah, because it's funny you bring up the eyes. Yeah, I'm 54. Mm-hmm. I'll be 55 soon, and I have as good or better eyesight than when I was younger.
Thank you.
Right, and I'm getting older every year too, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel better at this age than I did when I was 25, mm-hmm. right? Because we always have the ability to we can't change our linear age, but we could always change our metabolic age, which is basically how our body is functioning. And if we do things right and we keep our body in balance, what happens is aging is just a very slow, steady decline. So we still maintain a high level of vibrancy and energy, enthusiasm, ability, maintain our eyesight, our sexual activity, our energy levels, it goes on and on. And then very close to the end of life, we have a steep dramatic drop off and then we die. Right?
That's how it should be. That's ideal.
That's how it should be. And but we don't experience that as a culture. Mm-hmm. We experience it, right? And you can experience it as well. But in general, we watch again sick people get old, and we see this degrading representation of life. But it's not even at what point is even life anymore, right? Mm-hmm. When you can't move around, you can't do what you enjoy, or I had people say to me, I want to do that trip. I want to do that cruise to Alaska now while I'm in my 40s, while I can still kayak and hike. And I had somebody say that to me, and I was like, you know what? I don't know about you, but I don't have a point in my life where I think that I can't kayak or hike or do something like that. Yeah. It doesn't even exist in my mind.
So that's kind of like aging gracefully then. I mean, you're living a full life. You're able to enjoy experiences, be physically fit, energetic, healthy, alive. You're just aging gracefully. And then, like you said, at the end of your life, when you're done, that's it.
That's
a steep decline.
Yeah.
So what is that aging graceful process, or do you talk about that?
Well, the aging gracefully is just It's keeping your body, it's keeping the holistic aspect of who you are in balance.
Mm-hmm.
It's the body, it's the mind, it's the spirit, and just keeping that everything in an empowering state.
Mm-hmm.
And recognizing that, with anything, and I do with this myself. I mean, I'm not always perfect. Sometimes I veer off the path a little bit, but I'll recognize it and then get right back on the path, and the body recovers very quickly. It's not about doing everything perfect in every moment of your life, but it's being consistently, like moving in that positive direction on all those levels. And I know you focus a lot on what's going on mentally, emotionally, and energetically, and spiritually, vibrationally, and everything in the body. And that's such a huge, to me, even a more important component than the physical things that I teach. Yeah. So, but it's the combination of all of that gives us the answers.
So what is that? How do we do that? How do we go through that?
Well, it's a discovery, basically. Like, as an example, when a new client comes in to work with me, I ask them a series of questions just about their lifestyle. And I describe that, and that's kind of in the book Fat, Fatigued, and Frustrated. It's an action guide for what we refer to as your fundamentals of health. So first, it's, are we doing the simple things? Are we deep breathing and getting enough oxygen to the cells? Are we properly hydrating our cells? Are we feeding ourselves properly? Are we getting adequate rest? Are we moving our body? Are we moving our balls? Are we moving our vertebrae? Are we getting out in the sun? And are we taking care of that whole mental, emotional aspect? Or is somebody like the walking stress ball or dealing with all of the suppression? So I always kind of start there, because if you can't take care of the ease, if you can't do the simple things, you can't expect the bigger things to make a difference. And then from there, I just help people find hormonal balance, help them balance their gut-brain immune connection, help them with their inflammatory issues, help them detox. So you start simple, and then you kind of work out from there. And everybody's different. Like, not everybody has the same issues. Somebody might have different imbalances in their fundamentals of health. Some people might not have a gut issue, and others will. There's all these different variances. So it's really it's a very individualized journey, but there's definitely a path to go down.
So you're talking about reversing aging and brain health.
And
you started, and I know you have that connection, or you talk about that connection,
right.
And you've taught me about the connection between gut health and brain health. What does that have?
Yeah.
How does that play into aging?
So I'm actually glad you asked that, because when we think of the brain, right, and think of neurons, right, and to make it simple, there's literally millions of neurons in the body, right, and just the brain is loaded with neurons. And to maintain health of the body, these neurons communicate with each other. So let's say you have neuron number 1 here, and then neuron number 2 here, and then neuron number 3 here. And 1 communicates with 2, and 2 communicates with 3, and so on and so forth for millions of times, right? So, but what is happening though, as we're going through life, neurons die. They do. And thankfully, they can also regenerate, even though it used to be thought that neurons can't regenerate, but now we know that they can. But even if 1 is talking to 2 and 2 is talking to 3, if number 2 dies and there's a lack of communication, that means the communication that was supposed to go to 1 to 2 to 3 stops. So whatever's going down that pathway ceases to exist from a communication standpoint. That's aging.
And the communication about how to make
how your
body function.
Yeah, how your body's going to work, how the chemical processes occur. So when you take away a small piece of communication,
things start breaking down.
Yeah, and so when you think about it, when you start accumulating a lack of communication, the body doesn't function the same.
It doesn't know what to do.
Right.
Exactly. The right time.
Right.
The right order.
Because it's just lacking. And you think about it, with your work, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't a big part of your work communication?
Yes, absolutely.
Whether it's with other people or with yourself or with whatever you consider your source, right?
Absolutely.
The communication is essential even in the physical body tied into aging.
Wow. So what is essential in moving into either slowing down that process or going into the anti-aging process?
Okay, so good question. So going back to the neurons, so if we had number 1, 2, and 3, two dies, and there's no more communication. Well, 1, if the body is really healthy and everything is working the way you need it to, neurons can replicate themselves, right? But even if it doesn't replicate itself, if you keep your brain healthy that whole gut-brain immune connection, and everything is working optimally. When you have these two neurons now, now we're at number 1 and number 3, right? And they've lost the communication of 2, not being there. But what happens though is these neurons create these little dendrites, is what they're called. So the dendrites are like little fingers that reach out from the neuron, and what happens is these little fingers reach out and they connect. Okay. So even though neuron number 2 is now deceased, and there's going to be some level of function that will be missing, but the communication doesn't stop because the dendrites have reconnected.
Does that happen automatically?
If the brain is healthy.
If the brain is healthy, okay.
So if you're doing everything you need to do to maintain a healthy brain by getting enough blood flow there, getting enough oxygen, enough of the right nutrients, the brain is very capable of reconnecting that lost communication relatively quickly.
And I love that you say that, because I know growing up, studying science, we were always told, neurons don't regenerate themselves. Once you lose brain cells, that's it.
Right.
You're done. And now we know we can rebuild that by good health, by following those tips that you just shared.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. I love that.
Yeah, it's very cool.
You mentioned doing a survey of women. And I'm fascinated to find out what you found, because you asked questions about aging. And I'll tell you, it's a little bit unfair, because for women, aging is much more personal process, because of we're very self-conscious about our beauty. I mean, for men, you can go gray and you become a distinguished man. But for us, I mean, I've been dyeing my hair since my early 30s, and there was even an Instagram, gorgeous Instagram influencer, and I think she was doing Botox in her early 20s. I think she was like 23 already putting Botox. So what and you were asking them about the aging process. What kinds of things did you to these women? What age group, first of all, did you survey, and what did you learn from them?
Yeah, so it was really interesting. I was really surprised, because I actually thought I was going to get answers more of what you were talking about. That as and I was looking at, I was surveying a group of women between 45 and 55, basically in that area, and my question is just that as you're aging, what are you most afraid of regarding the aging process? And I was really expecting to hear things like losing my beauty, losing my self-confidence because I don't feel good about how I look, or gaining weight, or menopause, like any of the literally hundreds of things that they could have said. But by far, the biggest concern was developing something like dementia or Alzheimer's or some neurodegenerative disease, where when you're older, you don't recognize your friends or your family anymore, and you just can't function as a functioning human being anymore. And so it really made me understand that what I thought were potentially the bigger concerns weren't the bigger concerns at all. And that really, honestly, it really hits home for me. My grandmother on my mother's side died with severe dementia. I can remember her living in my house as a young child, and I wasn't, they didn't tell me what was going on. I was just a little boy, but I'd find grandma aimlessly, walking the halls at night and not knowing who I was or where she was or what's going on. And then my mother died with severe dementia. She was in a hospital bed in my parents' living room for about 13 months, being fed baby food and having her diapers changed every day. And then my older brother passed with ALS. So all significant neurodegenerative issues, and then I had a seizure disorder when I was just a teenager. So that's why for me, brain health and that aspect of anti-aging is important, because my focus is to maintain a really optimally functioning brain the rest of my life and I have a goal of living to 110, but living to 110 still rocking it, right?
Yes.
Going out and hiking and having fun, so that's why this is just more than just a part of my business. This is a very personal and even honest, and to be really candid, this is a very selfish thing on one level, because I first find out all this information to keep this healthy up in my head, and then.
And you are a wealth of knowledge. I mean, every time we just sat around, everyone's always picked his brain. What about this? How do we?
No, literally, right?
You picked your brain, yes. Wealth of information and knowledge.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So how would someone begin walking this path to just assure that they're not going to develop some degenerative disease, or again, really just have that steep incline or decline?
Yeah, I think the bigger thing at the beginning is take care of the simple things. You'd be amazed that, when I have new clients, I always go over their fundamentals of health, right? Which is what the book is about. And when I ask people, almost nobody is deep breathing with any consistency. Most people don't drink enough water. Most people are walking around dehydrated on a regular basis. Most people are eating foods that inflame their body, which inflames the brain. Most people don't get adequate sleep, which is how you maintain and repair the brain and the body. Most people don't have proper activity. Activity stimulates the brain. Most people don't have proper bowel movements, which has a negative impact on the brain, and likewise, then the brain challenge then impacts bowel movements. A lot of people don't ever, I'm not a chiropractor, but I support quality chiropractic care. That's another impact. There's a lot of people who have never been to a chiropractor. And even like as simple as people who don't get out in the sun, they're still tied into what we heard in the 70s. Oh, stay away from the sun, it's bad for you, it's killing you.
Right.
When the reality is a healthy level of daily sun exposure is kind of like an essential nutrient, and all of that kind of really just basically held up by the foundation of what's going on mentally, emotionally, and energetically. Mm-hmm. In our culture, most people are walking stress balls, and they're carrying suppression of all these emotional traumas from the last 3 or 4 decades. And we can't do all that wrong and expect our brain to work, and we can't expect to create an anti-aging effect when we can't even do the most basic simple things. So I always say, take care of the simple things first, and then you start discovering what else is going on. Are the hormones out of balance? Do you have a gut-brain immune issue that's deeper? All these other conditions, but you kind of work down the path of, like if you build a house, you don't build the ceiling of the house first and then build the foundation, right? You build the foundation, then the floor, then the walls, then the ceiling, then the roof. And you kind of look at your health that same way, and that's what gives you the opportunity to reach your goals, to have that healthy brain, to create that anti-aging effect. And really, what you're really doing, like you said earlier, you're just creating an improved metabolic age for yourself.
Yeah, wow.
And that's awesome.
And as you're talking, I'm just picturing a little kid, and what do? They're constantly running. They're out in the sun. Right. They just drink when they're thirsty. They eat. They poop. They don't have plugged plumbing.
Right. Exactly.
Things are working.
Right.
And it's almost like that's what you're wanting to get people back into. Is just that normal machine that's functioning.
Exactly.
Before we started filling it with all kinds of crud.
Right. And it's so funny, like you mentioned poop, which is a common subject for me. That most people,
really?
that most people don't really enjoy the conversation. But like if you think about it, most people are constipated on some level, and I define constipation as 1 bowel movement per day or less. But if you think about it, if
one day or less is constipation.
It's constipation.
Interesting. Okay.
But if you think about it, if you have an infant, and you feed a baby, the baby poops.
Right
Feed
away.
the baby again, the baby poops. Feed the baby poops. And really, if you wanted to shoot for perfection, we would still achieve that today. But we at least want to have 2 healthy bowel, one in the primary in the morning, another one late afternoon or early evening. But that's just one of the signs. As the defined constipation I just gave, if you're constipated, that's a sign that your brain is degenerated. So I know.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, because your brain regulates motility. It regulates the wave action of the smooth muscle tissue in your GI tract. So it's all these really interesting tidbits.
So this book will guide us on how to reverse that aging clock.
Right.
And exactly what to do, how to do it, how to keep everything in balance, how to keep everything functioning, how to reverse the aging process.
It is the beginning of the path.
It's the beginning of the path.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's really the whole thing. It is the essential beginning of the path, because I had a session with a client today, and I actually told her, I says, this is one of the things in our culture, is that most practitioners, whether it be conventional or either holistic practitioners, they don't put a strong enough focus on the simple things. And then they want to do all the tests and give all the supplements and wonder why it doesn't work. Well, if you can't do the simple thing, if you're not deep breathing, you're dehydrated, you don't move your body, your sleep sucks. When all these things are wrong, you can't expect to magically these test results and these supplements to make a big change for your life.
It made me think of a friend who has she's got a crack on her floor. We just had the rain, and she said her room just kept getting flooded. So it just made me think of it's like cleaning the floor without fixing the crack.
Right, exactly.
You're just going to keep bringing the mess in. So how do you work with people? So when someone comes to you, they go through the basics,
Mhm.
and you sit down with them and you find out how do you what's the process of
Okay.
taking on people.
So,
And-
so a new client would come in. I ask them all their questions about their fundamentals to see where they're at, right, and then make recommendations for where I feel like they're, not reaching their goals, right, and then I pay attention to what the body tells us. I've learned tools based on traditional Chinese medicine of fingernail and tongue analysis. Your body tells you a lot about what's going on in the body. I've used Iridology for well over a decade to understand potentially what's going on acutely or chronically, or even from a genetic predisposition standpoint in the body.
And I have to share something. You did iridology on my eye, and maybe it's a little too personal, but you pointed out some kind of an experience that caused a little bit of depression. It was a sad part of my life back in my teenage years.
Oh, like the stress rings.
Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay. And I thought, oh my God, you said, does something distressing happen at this age? And I thought, yes, wow, it's just amazing how you can find that out. And, then you go in and that's what you start to deal with the emotional issues to clear all of that as well.
And for some, I've even of the belief that we all on some level need some emotional work. I've gone through extensive emotional release work myself in a part of overcoming the seizure disorder and the diagnosis of epilepsy, because I used to be that total type A, high strung, even borderline violently reactive person. But
really?
It was nobody could usually guess that. I'd be the guy, when I was younger, don't cut me off because I'll catch you at the red light and try to drag you out of your car type thing. But
and you're just the nicest, funnest guy, so.
But I had to go through a lot of that work to get to where I'm at. Now if somebody cuts me off, I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I'm rushing around in life too much, and I have this gift of slowing me down. I look at it as a gift rather than I need to go beat somebody up, right?
Right. That's good. We all need a little more.
I know, right? Exactly.
So how would someone find you?
Most people, honestly, that I work with are, the biggest bulk of my business is just referrals from other clients. People have had success. But I have multiple people today who just, one person just found me in internet search, another person watched a video that I did for a company to instruct people on how to use lab testing. So it's either typically referrals or some kind of internet connection or search.
So if my viewers want to find you and ask you some more questions and maybe work with you and creating this strategy and this plan of optimal health and making sure that they live a full, vibrant, long life, how would they contact you?
Well, the easiest thing is to go to depkewellness.com, and Depke is DEPKE wellness.com.
And we'll put a link.
Yeah, and as a little, and we didn't talk about this, but since this is your peeps, that adore you for the great things that you do, we'll go a step further. So I'll give you my email and also my office number. So if anybody watching this, if you have a question, you don't have to go searching around all over the internet. You can actually reach me directly because that just makes life a lot easier for everybody.
Wow, thank you. And I know how busy you are, so
I know.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I do take a risk because with Trez, there's probably going to be millions of people seeing this. So.
Yes, absolutely. Millions of people. Thank you so much for your time and all this information. And my own head's spinning right now because I could a lot of those things on your checklist. I can do a lot better on.
And we all can, right?
Yeah, I think we do little bits and pieces, or at least I do little bits and pieces of it, but to be consistent and to make my health and my aging process a priority so that I can just live a vibrant life.
Yeah.
I think that's...
We should all do that, right?
We should all do that, exactly.
Let's all live a vibrant life.
So we can just laugh and have fun and party, which, we're definitely... want to do that. So I have some questions that that I would love to have you explore. What's on your calendar for this year? What big things are you creating?
Oh my gosh! Oh, so much. So much going on with the office on a consistent basis. Helping practitioners as well as people discover what they can do to help themselves or help others. I've even recently I've been doing a lot of speaking for Dr. Joseph Mercola, and I'm going to kind of increase that to just get more education out there for people. You know, so this year is a big focus on educating people, like what we're doing today. This is really just all about educating you, right? And that's like my big thing moving forward. I want people to, you know, the reason why people might get sick or why people might have a neurodegenerative issue or age, you know, not gracefully, the last thing I want it to be is because of a lack of education. So if I can provide that education, then you get to choose, am I going to do this or not? And if you don't, well then fine. Everybody has the ability to choose, you know. But if you don't have the information, you really don't have an ability to choose. You only have the ability to go down that same path of sick people getting old, right?
What everyone else is doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. One of my mentors, Jesse Itzler, who's amazing. I don't know if you know who he is. Asked us a question. What's your life story in 6 words?
Oh.
So I'd love to ask you that.
That's easy. Do what you love right now.
Oh, I love that.
That's, you know, I don't work a day in my life. I love what I do. I love helping people. I love seeing people have positive change. And it's kind of funny because I get to every day talk about and do what I love, and people compensate me for it.
Yeah.
So it's like, so do what you love right now.
I love that. I love that. And what inspires you?
Seeing positive change inspires me. You know, when I can help somebody, including myself, you know, or it doesn't have to be a client. It could be, you know, my wife or heck, my dogs, you know, family members, you know, clients, but to be able to share something that provides a positive impact for people, that inspires me in every moment. I wake up in the morning to do that.
I love that. And the final question, what's your word for this year?
Euphoria.
Ooh.
That is my word for this year. It's already been, you know, it was something that's, that was, you know, I think last year was ease, and this year I'm kind of ramping it up into euphoria, and you know what? So far, so good.
Yes, I love that. I love that. I might have to play around with that word. Well, Glen, thank you so much for your time, for all the information, for your energy, for this fabulous book that they can find on your website.
Oh, you know, let's go one step further. Everybody who goes to, she'll give you, Trez will provide you a link for a free ebook as well.
Oh my God, thank you so much. Yeah, we'll definitely put that link on there. So thank you so much. This is very eye-opening. I feel like I've learned a lot, and feel like I've got a lot to you know, to start to shift, but I'm going to be on a good trajectory. So
awesome.
Thank you for your time. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Great job. That was awesome.
that?
That was awesome.
Oh.
As long as it's still recording.
No kidding.
Every once in a while that happens.